best-selling gelling pen.
The president meeting with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle yesterday in an effort to pass both immigration and tax reform. President Trump indicating that he is willing to compromise on the Dreamers, which has some conservatives up in arms.
We want to see if we can do something with regard to immigration, with regard to the 800,000 people that are now young people. They're not children anymore. They were children, now they're young people. But we want to see if we can do something in a bipartisan fashion so that we can solve the DACA problem and other immigration problems.
So let's bring in our panel. Isaac Wright is a former executive director for a pro-Hillary Clinton super PAC. Brian McGuire is the former chief of staff to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. They are sort of all over the map on all this stuff this morning after the dinner last night. Brian, where do you read things to be?
The president is clearly anxious to get some points on the board. I think if I were him and his team, I would just want to make sure at the end of the game that some of those points were on my side of the scoreboard. And it's not clear to me yet what Democrats are giving up in exchange for these bipartisan deals.
Isaac, do you agree with that?
I think President Trump has realized that after 9 months of a failed administration that's failed legislatively, working with Ryan and McConnell to get anything done, that he's got to look beyond that. Hopefully, having Democrats at the table means that we'll have better directions for the policy and the legislative agenda, as well as better outcomes to get those better directions done.
Brian, you know, it does seem like what he's trying to do is make a deal with people that are willing to sit down and work with him, and he tried to work with Republicans, and that didn't happen. But how far can he go before he alienates the people who brought him into office in the first place, given the fact that a lot of people say his base is going to be with him no matter what? I mean, that's always been the talking point.
The president's base is extremely loyal to him. There's no question about that. But I do think this is a short-term strategy because, you know, I've read that the president's advisors are big readers of Greek military history, and one of the first lessons of Greek military history is not to trust Greeks bearing gifts. My concern would be that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi don't have the president's best interests in mind, and that the results of that will become evident in short order.
Well, you don't expect them to have the president's best interest in mind, but you do expect all of these people to have the country's best interest in mind.
Amen.
And maybe what politics looks like that's successful is a little bit of good and a little bit of pain for everyone involved. No one gets exactly what they want, but you work together and get something that you know, all sides are not totally happy with, and everybody got a little piece of something. I mean,
yeah.
You know, Isaac, could we be going back towards something like that?
While my opponent draws comparisons to ancient Greek history and Thucydides, I'd take a piece of wisdom from farm advice where I grew up. You don't talk to an angry mule because it's not going to go the direction you want, and the minute you get behind it, it's just going to kick you. Donald Trump has learned that McConnell and Paul Ryan and congressional Republicans are the angry mule. They're not getting anything done. They're not going in any direction, right or wrong, even with the majorities. So he's looking beyond that at how to change the game.
But, Brian, it doesn't mean that he's siding with Democrats altogether and he's throwing Republicans out the window. I mean, he may be just showing them that I may go in a different direction to get this started, and now you come to the table, you tell me what you want. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't have a seat at the table now, does it?
Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with working with the other side. The idea of a bipartisan deal, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's what everybody is hoping for. The question, again, is what do conservatives get out of that deal? And at this point, I think a lot of conservatives are asking themselves that question. Maybe
what they get is they get an actual tax reform bill. I mean, maybe what they get is funds for border security if they bend on DACA. I mean, maybe that it's about compromise on all fronts. Isaac, I'll give you the last word. Could that be what conservatives get?
Tax reform is a primary example. Ron said yesterday he was open to raising the deficit for tax reform. McConnell has pushed for tax reform that helps the top 1%. Trump previously had done that. Democrats have outlined and been consistent on two principles. You don't raise the deficit, and tax cuts should benefit 99% of Americans, not the top 1%.
Well, the president's
if Trump's
been
willing
clear
to work on that, I think that we have the opportunity to work together.
I think he's made it clear that he's not for tax cuts on the wealthy. He's said that so many times in the past 24 hours. It's about jobs. It's about the middle class. It's about
His Treasury
corporate
Secretary
taxes.
said yesterday the reverse, but I'm like you. I think the president has moved in that direction. I would agree.
All right, gentlemen, thanks to both of you. Leland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Coming up, we head back to Florida for more on the nursing home tragedy that occurred days after Hurricane